Hello, everybody. What is going on? It is Tuesday, March 7th, and it is this week's episode of The Walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Welcome. It is finally March, everybody, believe it or not. So obviously a lot of good basketball on our way in this month. So obviously this week's episode of The Walkthrough, we got how did the coin flip heard around the SEC help South Carolina women's basketball in the SEC tournament? What stood out from their game against Kentucky? And Shane Beamer is in D.C. This time he's not recruiting the number one overall defensive end in the country. I'll have what Coach Beamer was doing before Congress today. And how did the baseball team get swept by Clemson? All that and more right after the intro. This is a walkthrough. Hang in there.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's episode of The Walkthrough, presented by the Chief Sports Network. And now, here's your host, Joe Macheca.
Yes, indeed, it is that time of the week. This is this week's episode of The Walkthrough. I'm Joe Macheca. This week, we start with the coin flip heard around the SEC. Yes, indeed, the coin flip that decided the fate of South Carolina women's basketball in the SEC tournament. Greg Sankey, obviously, posing, getting ready to, flip the coin and everything at the SEC offices. So obviously he flipped that coin and South Carolina was the winner. So essentially what did that mean, right? Like, why was there this big ordeal of this flip to break the tie, atop the SEC women's basketball? Well, obviously, yes, as I mentioned, Texas and South Carolina were tied on top of the SEC with ahead, and the coin flip was the only way to decide who would, win the SEC outright. Now they did share the SEC regular season title, and which the team won on Sunday against Kentucky. But again, this is just, plain and simple for seeding in the SEC tournament. Again, the coin flip heard around the SEC. What does it all mean? Obviously, again, they're sharing the SEC regular season title with Texas, which again, why we had all of this. But all it means is that South Carolina will play on Friday at noon. The first game, as you can see, next game 9, I believe. Game 9 at noon on ESPN. South Carolina will play instead of playing the 6:00 game in Greenville SEC tournament with where Texas is at right now, as you can see again right there. So it does change a little bit of who is going to match up where. If you're South Carolina, you have to play a combination of one of either Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Vandy. Now looking at this again, you're probably going to play either Tennessee or Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M is a team that South Carolina beat 90-49, right? I think Tennessee, again, that game kicks off the SEC women's basketball tournament tomorrow. And so I would think Tennessee take that win, and then again we'll have to play Vanderbilt to decide who plays South Carolina on Friday. So again, a lot of basketball between Wednesday and Thursday. And Carolina will play the winner of likely Tennessee and Vanderbilt, but we'll have to see again. And South Carolina has seen either of the three teams or all of the three teams that they'll be matching up with, potentially on Friday. So that should make the FAMS feel good. The closest game that you had with any of those three teams was Tennessee, right? You taped up in Rocky Top, and that game came it was the fifth game in a row where you were playing ranked teams. So I don't necessarily blame South Carolina for escaping with a 7-point victory up there in Rocky Top. It was Kim Caldwell's welcome back game as well. So Tennessee ranked number 18 at that point. They've had some struggles to between now or then and now up to this point, which is why they're playing, or the 9 seed, and playing A&M in the first game of this tournament. So you had the big coin again and all it determined was seeding, right, against South Carolina with their victory over Kentucky. Locked up their share of the SEC regular season championship. So, and that squad took care of business. I'll talk about Kentucky. But first, after Kentucky, Raven Johnson said this. She said, I think this is the most competitive SEC year we've been. Any team, you can't take any days off, but every game you have to bring your A game. And I think the SEC tournament is going to be good. It's also March Madness. Like, I think it's going to be one of the best March Madnesses to watch. So that's good for women's basketball overall. Certainly. And again, if you look at this SEC loaded, right? I mean, Tennessee's ranked at 1 point. Vanderbilt's been ranked. Ole Miss have all been ranked. Alabama's been ranked as well. So, top to bottom, really, in this SEC, it's been loaded all year. And so, Carolina again will have one of 3 teams. But then if you look ahead at that, you look at essentially who you will play in the semis. It's probably going to be Kentucky looking ahead, right? I think you see Kentucky down there in that 4th spot. They've got to beat Oklahoma most certainly, and I mean whoever comes out of Arkansas and Georgia. I mean 2 teams that South Carolina handled again pretty well, and then you also saw this Kentucky matchup this weekend. South Carolina went 78-66, and I'll have a full breakdown of that as well. You look at other notables around this conference, right, and around this conference tournament. You see that LSU is dealing, or they're not going to have Flaugier, right? So that puts a damper on LSU, certainly. They've got Alabama to deal with, Alabama, Florida as well. I mean, depending on who comes out of that game, Florida and Auburn, I would think Alabama is going to win. But again, this is March, right? You don't necessarily know what is going to happen in these conference tournaments. Somebody could get hot, whatnot. I think the biggest potential for that is down in LSU's region. Maybe it might beat Alabama, but if they get to Texas, and for all intents and purposes, I see Texas, getting past Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, like all of those teams, to the semi at the very least. So what I'm predicting in this SEC tournament is that you should match up with Texas if you're South Carolina, right? Talking about this Kentucky game, because again, I do want to bring up this Kentucky game. Because again, South Carolina might face them, on Saturday, right? And so this Kentucky game, I'm pulling up the box score here really quickly, right? As we get it pulled up. South Carolina defeats Kentucky by a score of 78-66. Pulling up the box score right now. You saw the most from your guards, Tahina Paopao and Tessa Johnson, right? Big for both of them. Again, I think personally because it means a lot, right? I think this game was big for the South Carolina team to get back to old habits, right? Dawn said after the UConn loss, you just get back to your habits. We're not going to wholesale change what we're doing. I mean, a loss like this is about toughness. A loss like this isn't about anything besides getting our players keeping the main thing. Obviously, when we lose like this, something else is going on that is about basketball. Well, I mean, the South Carolina team figured it out pretty quickly against Kentucky. I think, and I'm pulling again to pull this up, or I've got it up. Excuse me. But so they figured it out, right? They saw they had an 11-point lead just before half, right? The South Carolina team against Kentucky. I mean, you knew the Claire Strack, 6'3", 6'4", I believe, center for Kentucky to get hers. But and Georgia, a more super talented offensive guard for Kentucky, right? As we look at the split box, Amore and Strack got theirs. Amore shot 8 of 19, which is good for South Carolina, right? I think that's limiting Georgia Amore, considering how she's been playing as of late. But Claire Strack was a problem. I mean, 23. She had 10 of her 23 in the third quarter, which was a problem. I mean, that's when South Carolina, lost that 11-point lead. You got down into trouble there, and the lead got down to 1, I believe, and so this team just rallied back, right? They just focused on the defensive end, what they could do, and a lot of the Kentucky trouble came from, for the South Carolina defense, came from the defensive end or offensive end, right? It was the pick and roll. Kentucky, Moore and Strack would run that pick and roll, and you would either over rotate or under rotate, and Strack would just either hit the 3 or drive, right? And she was getting a lot of the drives to go, which was super big for Strack, and obviously Kentucky that went on that run there. But South Carolina closed it back out. I was really impressed with the way they did it. This team looked really good against Kentucky. Like the way that they fought back, they looked better, just more complete as a team. And talk about, I do want to talk about what, I'll come back to this Kentucky box score here in a second, but I'll talk about what they were able to do against Ole Miss and Vandy, right? If you look at the Ole Miss game, Chloe Kitts, triple-double. And on top of that, Sinai Fagan has 22 points. Everyone has been saying about this team, oh my gosh, Ashton Watkins is gone. They're not going to be able to compete in the post. They're not going to be able to compete in the post. Oh my gosh, Ashton Watkins is gone. They're playing a small forward and a power forward out there at center and power forward. Oh my goodness, Ashton Watkins is gone. They're not going to have a post. Well, starting with, and you look at this Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, there's 2 games this team needed after the UConn loss to get things back on track. Well, they took their business, right? They win big in Nashville, and then they go to Ole Miss, and then they take care of business as well, with Chloe Kitts having a triple-double. And Sinai, again, 22 points. Huge night from your 2 forwards. And, they continue to have that edge, right? I mentioned you have a small forward and a forward playing power forward in center. It's a little bit of a shift when you don't have a true center. And so again, you've got Kiss and Fagan playing down low, and then you have Joyce, the dual small forward and power forward, the stretch 4. As Joyce kind of plays in a true stretch 4 kind of role, they've come out and dominated. With that Miss game, and the production hasn't slipped. Again, going back to this Kentucky game, they took good shots, right? They took really good shots. They shot 49% on the game, right? Which is good. Good shooting eliminates a lot of bad things. I'll tell you this, because again, 49% from the field, and even Claire, Strack, and Moore did theirs. Shooting 49% from the field would get the job done. And again, Kentucky got 4-2, so a pretty solid defensive effort, but nothing too crazy. But what stood out to me, and I'll pull it up on the South Carolina box score, just the home stats, if you will. Okay. What stood out to me is the column on the far right. You look at that, and then you see points in the paint. Okay. And I'll say it again. This team is just fine without Ashton Watkins. Yes, their defensive efforts have not been as intense, right, as if Watkins was roaming the floor, right? If Watkins was roaming the floor, you'd have an almost Dennis Rodman-esque, kind of defensive effort. When Watkins is on the floor, she plays similar to Rodman, where she's blocking shots, rebounding, doing all that stuff, right? That's these 2 bigs, and again, these 2 forwards, and you also, bring up Joyce too. Joyce hasn't had the best of games lately, which I think is personally good for her, right? She had been dominating as a freshman. You get a freshman that has too much confidence going in, and then all of a sudden she has bad games. She can shake it. Well, for Joyce, these last couple games haven't been the great for her. So she's had a couple games to where, okay, these 2 didn't go as well in my way. So now what can I change going into tournament time to make sure that Maya can remain consistent and then also help the team, right? I think that's huge. Chloe Kitts, again, sneaky double-double in this Kentucky game, right? He finishes with 12 points. Again, after the triple-double at Ole Miss, again, continuing to step up. Chloe Kitts, not to mention, could be, if she stays in school as she was supposed to, she should technically still be a sophomore, right? She's a junior since she enrolled early. And again, I've mentioned this on this show a lot. She plays out of position. I think she's a true small forward that's, again, playing power forward and center. And she fought on Sunday, like she battled in the post. There was a couple. Well, I mean, missed calls, sure, if you want to say that, but I mean, Chloe Kitts was going up with the ball on Sunday, and getting fouled at the bucket by Kentucky, and didn't necessarily get the call, but she got the finish, right? The bucket would count, and I saw Raven Johnson again picking up Chloe after there was up, and kind of got fouled, and was frustrated about it. Chloe made the bucket, but Raven picked her back up and said, "Hey, you got to focus. Can't get too focused on what the refs are doing." And in a game like this is what I'm assuming she said. So it's huge. I mean, obviously for Raven picking her up, but for Chloe, right, to do what she's doing as, again, a true small forward after all the criticism of, she needs to get so much bigger, she needs to fight more, she needs to fight harder. I think was a culmination of everything Chloe's been trying to do to combat that, right? Maybe she's not big enough right now, but I know Molly Benetti and Chloe Kitts will be working on that to just put on more weight and make her more competitive in the post, right? I think is going to be the MO. The credit to Chloe for being able to adapt and really shine through and get the job done in the post, like she did on Sunday, and then also against Ole Miss, and so that's part of this team's identity. They're doing well with it. So again, I think when Chloe Kitts is playing her best basketball in the post, this team is going to do well. And again, a couple more takes from Kentucky, right? Just to wind down Kentucky and also kind of the women's basketball portion of the show. But there's plenty to talk about again with this team going into SEC play. But I mean, a couple points. Again, Chloe Kitts got cooking. Raven Johnson had one of the better games as well, right? I think she also had a sneaky 8 points, just for Raven. But again, 2 rebounds and a steal. Pow also had 3 steals. Full Wiley, 4 of them. Full Wiley had again. Malaysia Full Wiley can't really have a quiet day at the office because of the type of player that she is. Making the reverse layups and all different kinds of plays that she makes naturally. But I mean, she finished with 10 4 steals, leading the game in steals. The team had 10 steals as a whole. But yeah, credit to Tessa Johnson again and Tahina Pau, 2 players that this team really needed to get going. And they both played well. Pau finished with 13, and Tessa had 16. Again, big going from players that needed to get going on the offensive end. So huge for this women's basketball team going forward. Again, as I mentioned, bringing back the SEC tournament back up real quick. Flau'jae Johnson will not be playing for LSU. She is out for the SEC tournament, and so we will have to see where that lies for March Madness and everything like that. But something to monitor for sure, as Texas would be the likely matchup in the SEC title game for South Carolina, if considering Jay is out. So again, South Carolina tipping off their SEC title defense against TBD, but either Texas A&M, Tennessee, or Vanderbilt. You will have to wait till Thursday afternoon to kind of see who they're playing and whatnot, and what the start of the path looks like. And then, I mean, you just kind of have to play it out. I would assume you'll face Texas, but you never know. You can't overlook Kentucky. Kentucky's a good team, and Kentucky still has to get through Oklahoma, or I would assume Georgia. But, I mean, maybe Arkansas gets a win there. But I don't know. We'll have to see. But big week for Gamecock women's basketball. I have all of the coverage for the Big Spur as usual on boots on the ground, everything in Greenville. So, yeah, should be a fun weekend over there. And so after the commercial break, got a commercial break coming right up. But after the commercial break, Shane Beamer in Washington, D.C., advocating for some NIL stuff. We'll have the full breakdown from that also, plus highlights from the NFL Combine. And then last but not least, we'll talk about baseball getting swept by a combined score of 18-6 to arch rival Clemson. Where do they go from there? And what can they fix to salvage things in the SEC this season? all that coming up right after this break. We're going to take a quick timeout. This is the walkthrough. Stay
Low on
lined.
energy, struggling with inflammation and poor digestion? Try Encapsulate 6 Mushroom Blend and get back in the game. Our blend is specially formulated to promote overall wellness and maximize health benefits using 6 powerful functional mushrooms. Our science-forward approach offers the most potent and bioavailable mushroom supplement on the market, backed by third-party testing to ensure safety and efficacy. Order online on Amazon or encapsulateusa.com today to start your journey to better living. Enter promo code JCM for $10 off.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got
MidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case.
Nice.
So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Yes, indeed. Getting right back at it. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Encapsulate, Resto Pros, and Protect with Bear, the Right to Bear arms. Our guy Perry Orth over there, Protect with Bear. And South Carolina women's basketball going to the SEC tournament. Going on a high note. Again, if you missed any of that, just rewind. Or going the other way. Rewind on the YouTube or any stream wherever you're watching this on Twitter. But rewind out the full breakdown of Kentucky, as well as everything you need to know for the SEC women's basketball tournament this weekend in Greenville. But again, I did want to talk about Shane Beamer is in Washington, D.C., or was in Washington, D.C. Again, coach flying around the country left and right, but, was in D.C. today and was talking to Congress about NIL, right? And I'm trying to pull up a picture of Shane testifying, right, to prove that, I'm not off. I'm sure some of y'all have seen the coverage of that, but Shane in Washington, D.C. can't get the image to pull up here. But again, coach being in Washington, D.C., advocating for NIL law. And so basically he's advocating for in front of Congress, because Congress is having NIL law hearings right now, or hearing for, NIL law and laws with collegiate sport surrounding it. But so basically, Coach Beamer was DC again, not recruiting a number one overall defensive end because, well, it's still the dead period's now over, but quiet period now, and I'll get into that in a sec. But basically, he was advocating that federal government should regulate NIL laws, and the main point of the matter to Coach Beamer, what he was talking about was, he says that essentially right now, and this is true, it's 50 different states and 50 different variations of the NIL law. Different schools, every different school is getting away with a different amount or different version of NIL, right? It looks different everywhere else. So that's essentially what he's advocating for. That's essentially what he was there doing today. Other football news, dead period is now over. Quiet period, as I mentioned, meaning the Gamecocks can host but not go and visit, which is why I said Shane should not, or at least isn't in DC. Visiting a number one overall recruit, and that reference to Dylan Stewart, the former number one overall recruit that lived in Washington D.C. But again, super big stuff to see Shane Beamer on such a stage as Congress advocating for the rights to NIL laws. So good stuff over there. Again, it is now over, so South Carolina can now host. So South Carolina set to host a number of visitors in March, including a pair of 4-stars. So if you want to find out who, go check out the latest VIP room brought to you by Hannah McGranahan and John Whittle on BigSpur.com. Again, that's what this show is brought to you by the part of the Big Spur Network, or the Chief Sport alongside the BigSpur.com. Again, more football news. Nicky Manwari goes superhuman. I'll pull up this tweet, or hopefully I can pull up this tweet again from Alyssa Lang's fiance, Trevor Seekba. Let's see if we can get here. If it will pull up. Ooh. Here we go. Okay, so yeah. Check out Nick Eamon-Ward testing in the NFL Combine. Again, his tweet. Shout out Alyssa Lang, known Gamecock alum. Her fiance, Trevor Steekman, Tampa Bay Trey, tweeting Nick Eamon-Ward's percentile in the NFL draft. Or in the NFL Combine. Out of NFL draft participants for this year, the percentile. Tight clocking in the 97th percentile. Weight 220, 92nd percentile. And as everyone can read, 43 on the vert, which is nuts. 98th percentile, right up there with some of the best of the best. The broad jump, 11.6, 98th percentile, and his 40, which we know up there is wrong. He ran a 4.38. The 4.4 would have put him in the 94th percent. That's great stuff. Nick Eamon just made himself a lot of money, potentially working himself up to a first round grade. So big stuff out of the combine. I know. So obviously, Newry making a big jump this weekend at the combine, but then also Josh Simon leading the tight ends with the 40 time, making big runs. In some of the drills, making a lot of big catches. Impressing scouts at the combine, to say the least. Josh Simon, a name to watch climbing up draft boards. Expect him to go a little earlier based on what he was able to do in the combine as well. But yeah, shout out to Nick Eamon-Ward putting on for South Carolina, and again, one of South Carolina's own from Irmo. Not at the combine. Again, running a 4.38 that time is again not official. That's his first time. But right back to it again. Nick Eamon-Ward nuts the combine. Shane Beamer was in DC advocating for NIL law, got through that. And then baseball, right? South Carolina baseball gets swept by our rival Clemson. I checked, losing to Sacred Heart, or not Sacred Heart, losing to Davidson. But so running through the weekend, right? Clemson right now is just a based program than South Carolina at this current moment, right? During year one of a rebuild, and you called in one of the deep cleaners, right? You called in Paul, who does things a lot differently, or at least assembles his roster a little differently than the previous guy, right? So this weekend kind of just woke you up to, oh, hey, South Carolina baseball now has to, be really on top of their stuff from here forward if you want to continue to beat Clemson, because Clemson is starting to figure things out in the baseball department, which is what this weekend taught us, essentially, or taught me, at least, right? They're starting to figure things out. I don't know if it's the Savannah Bananas going up there or what, but Clemson, granted, it's always been a competitive baseball series. It always has been. As I need to plug in my laptop here, about to die. But so it's always been a competitive baseball series. We knew that. Now Clemson has your number, and they're able to not only win a game in the Palmetto Series, but sweep a series in the Palmetto Series. It's the lone series besides tennis that they won, right? Raw tennis. And now I'm not, for any viewers that we're on the tennis team or play tennis, shout out to you again. Try to get that Palmetto Series victory. But again, I think this doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth if you're the South Carolina baseball program, right? And it's going to be tough to win one. Clemson. It's going to be tough to win one at Flower Field, despite the success that you've had. But Cam Canarella and those Clemson guys had way too much success. Again, my biggest takeaway from that is you just got beat, man. You got beat. Your arch rival is just in a better place than you are right now from a baseball standpoint. And again, checking on the schedule here, seeing if Sacred Heart or the David score has turned up, because again, sometimes you lose midweeks in the front end of your schedule. But currently with you losing to Davidson, currently top 6, 3-1 as of now. Game kicked off at 6:30 tonight. Losing to Davidson midweek, 3-1 at Founders Park. is your little score update as we move along into the evening. South Carolina men's basketball. Again, I'll provide a score update on that. Not looking good from the last time I checked, but again, that was right at the beginning of the game. Let's see. Oops. South Carolina, you're not going to have, I mean, you're going to make the SEC tournament because everyone does. Okay, so currently South Carolina men's basketball lost to Georgia by a final score of 64-73. Again, not good. South Carolina men's basketball. I mean, this can be a safe. This men's basketball team. You've got number 4 ranked Tennessee on Saturday before you go to the SEC tournament. Not a whole lot to be excited about, man. Not a whole lot to be excited about for this men's basketball team. But I'll tell you this. Things have to be better next year. They have to be. And now, credit to Jeremiah Donati, the new athletics director here at South Carolina, because he's committed. So far, everything that I've heard about this men's basketball program is that Jeremiah Donati is committed to bringing men's basketball back at South Carolina. And obviously, Lamont Paris, everybody is game for. Everyone wants to make it happen. But this season, you gotta flush it, right? And you have more off-season success. Off-season success is going to become part of the game now in college athletics. You're gonna have to find transfers that fit the mold that you want in your style of player. Right? You have to find off-season success to have success in the regular season. South Carolina's basketball made a step in the right direction last season, take a step in the wrong direction backwards this year, right? Gotta find the right players in the portal to find success. This year, Mont did not find the right players in the portal. Luckily, Jeremiah Donati, very committed to bringing the right players here and reviving men's basketball. So that should be some hope. But again, baseball down 3-1 as it stands right now. Top 6 to Davidson. Now again, refreshing that. See if it changes at all. It does not. Again, down 3-1 over there at First Park today. Again, I don't think this is any cause to concern for this baseball team. I really don't. Going back, even losing this midweek to David, it's year 1 of the Pulmonary era. And everyone else around you got better this offseason, right? So the South Carolina program starts to rebuild. And again, as you get further and further from the 2 NCAA titles, it is going to get harder and harder to build because none of any of these guys who were brought in remember that. I mean, plain and simple. Like nobody remembers, or nobody comes at least, right? Remember South Carolina winning those NCAA titles. I was barely old enough to remember South Carolina winning those titles as a kid. So I have to build it through other means. Having a good program in the SEC, right? You're going to have to build it through guys who want to beat Clemson, guys who want to win state, and the guys who want to just win in the SEC. And I think Paul Neri is the fixer for that, right? He's the right guy for this job to do that. Very well recruiting. You got to keep guys in state. You got to keep, guys that want to win that Clemson rivalry in state and at South Carolina, right? So losing this Clemson series isn't the worst thing in the world for this program, but it's going to be a long year over there at Founders Park, as unfortunate as that is. But hey, gives this team, number one, a bad taste, and the next generation of players, that Maneri is bringing in, it's going to, has brought in already the guys that are on this team. And it's a good mix of fresh guys and veterans, sure. But losing to Clemson this and getting swept by them nonetheless is going to leave quite a bad taste in this baseball team's mouth, I would think. I clearly didn't. It hasn't worked yet, I guess, against Davidson, again, as they trail 3-1. But, I think there are brighter days in the way for this baseball game. I'll be sure to have John Whittle on, to kind of get the fuller breakdown of what's going on and what has happened over at Founders Park as of late, and how the team can find bright spots in this year. But we will save that for another week. But again, if you missed any of my show, be sure to go check it out. Just rewind on YouTube, on Twitter. The replay will be live on the Chief Sports Network as well. So go check that out on our YouTube page. Also check out the Inside Gamecock show every single day. JC and Phil, Mad Dog on there in the afternoon show. And then JB, man, the myth, the legend, and Mad Dog also holding it down in the mornings. So Inside the Gamecock show, again, there's two of them now, the morning show and the afternoon show. Morning show with JB, check him out. Morning start at 9, I believe. And then also JC and Phil from noon till 4. So be sure to check those guys out every single day on the Chief Sports Network. This has been this week's episode of The Walkthrough. Again, appreciate everyone tuning in. Next week, I believe we will have Brad Muller for the SEC or for an NCAA tournament preview, or not next week, the week after. So be sure to stay tuned for good interview coming up here shortly to preview the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Men's team obviously not going to the NCAA tournament, let alone the NIT this season. So plenty of coverage from the SEC women's basketball tournament coming to you from myself this weekend. So stay tuned to that all on thebigspur.com. But yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Enjoy the rest of your week. I've been Joe Macheca, and this has been The Walkthrough. Appreciate everyone.